My name is Ramo. I am 30 years old. I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and I am shunned.
All right, Ramos. So how did you become one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the first place?
Like a lot of witnesses these days, I was born and raised.
All right. So born in. Do you know how far back it goes in your family? How many generations?
As far as I've known, it's just my dad, like before us. He actually got it in prison, and he got baptized in prison. He was actually a real famous story around where I grew up just because of all that. He was anointed too. He realized later on in life. So, like, he was kind of a local guy that people knew about. But other than that, it was just him and then us. So fortunately, it'll be over with me.
Wow. So I bet your dad was quite the story. It's kind of
Hmm.
like that rags to riches type story in the witness
Yes.
from prison to anointed.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
It was definitely. And man, I can't tell you how many times I heard the story over the years. Different service groups, different break times, different congregations we visited. Everyone wanted to hear that story all the time. And my dad freaking like relished that attention. You would see him just shining, talking about how the angels protected him all those years and stuff. But yeah, that was a big deal to him, man.
Oh, absolutely. I can only imagine what that must have meant to him too. To feel from prison to and maybe not feeling so special in life to
Hmm.
coming out and having this thing that makes him so special in an organization.
Yeah.
Great story. Um, so for yourself, being raised in the truth,
Yeah.
what was kind of the worldview that it gave you? How did you see the world around you when you were growing up?
Oh man. So like I was terrified of everything growing up. I tried to be cool all the time. Like I've always, they call it the double life. It's come up before and you're living a double life, but I was like really shitty at both of them. Like I couldn't I couldn't enjoy all the worldly bad stuff I was doing because like I had that guilt for the witness stuff. And I couldn't really enjoy all the witness stuff because I had all the guilt from the bad worldly stuff. And so it was just like lame, man. Like growing up was super lame.
So if you had this double life,
Hmm.
um, again, what I typically like to remind people is that the double life was the witness life,
Yes.
because you were showing what you really wanted to do in life or who you really wanted to hang out with. But because you kind of embraced that worldly life, then did you see people in the world as scary, or did you just not trust them, or what was the attraction to them when you maybe were taught to look at them a certain way?
My attraction to them was my family. I have older siblings. I'm the youngest of five, and they all left home by the time I was like seven. So I always wanted to be around them. Those are my brothers and sisters. I had a connection to them and I wanted to be around them. I always loved them. But, and it always hurt because I wasn't supposed to be. They're bad, they're evil, they're worldly. And so, like, even growing up, everyone in the world I was scared of, everyone I was talking to at the doors, I couldn't trust. But with my family, man, it was always like it felt like home around them, but I could never be okay doing that because like as soon as we'd leave, my dad would be in my ear like, "Oh, look at you want to be with Satan's world, you want to be with bad people. Look at how quick you are to do evil things." Like, and I wouldn't be doing anything, hanging out with my brothers and sisters. But that was my connection to the world. That's kind of what kept me wanting to associate with people and be in that uncomfortable area was my family actually.
It's interesting how there's always this paranoia among parents, and I think it's because they see the world as being so scary and evil because they bought into all these narratives, but then they are ascribing bad things to like your siblings
Hmm.
who just because they're worldly and you just want to be around them and just have a normal family day, but there's so much paranoia around like they're going to get you into things,
Yeah.
so that you can't, like, you're told not to trust them, and then your parents don't really fully trust you because they're scared that you're going to get sucked in by this this thing they've built up into the boogeyman, you know?
Yeah, and then what never registered to me until way later was like all the things that they would point out as bad aspects of my brothers and sisters' life. It's like literally all their fault. Like you kicked them out to the street. You never taught them anything. And like later on when I brought that up to them, it was such a like an epiphany to me to realize that like, wait, that's your fault, bro. Like that's all you. What are you doing pointing that out as on them? Like that's all you.
Oh yeah, it's like, you know, people leave Jehovah's Witnesses at some point, whether voluntarily or they're kicked out, and they go into the world and they suffer. A lot of times they suffer because they haven't been taught any skills.
Yes.
We're taught nothing.
Yeah.
Um,
It's bizarre, and like that self-fulfilling prophecy, like if you've heard all you're gonna be is a piece of shit when you leave, that's all that's in your head. Like, okay, I'm free. Oh, I guess I gotta be a piece of shit now. And like you see that over and over. It's so sad how the system they built is so powerful in itself and self-sustaining. It's really gross, man.
it is. It really is. So in your childhood, I mean, so you weren't living with your siblings then; they were gone.
Mhm.
So what was life like for you at home growing up?
Man, super involved in spiritual activities. Since my dad was anointed, and being a witness is all about like carrying that facade up. Day text and 2 chapters of the Bible every day. Not a day. I think maybe like he'd be proud of this, me saying it, but I think we missed that maybe like twice in my entire life that I lived with him up until I was 16, 17. Missed that maybe twice. Did that my whole life.
Wow.
We would do the Watchtower study together as a family on Mondays, study for the Theocratic Ministry School on Wednesday nights, and then that was our Thursday, and then we would study for our book study, which was on Saturday. We'd study for that on Fridays. I went to school like I think kindergarten, first grade, maybe. But after that, they took me out to homeschool. They never did it, and so I was just out in service all the time with my mom. Just she lived out in service, man, every day pretty much. I think we'd only have like Thursdays off. Go out Saturdays. Since my dad had to show out on the weekends, we'd go out for Sundays after meeting too. That was it, man. Just witness stuff. Home life was like we'd be out in service all day because my dad retired early too. So man, I had them on my back all the time growing up. Like so we'd be home all day out in service right up until like the afternoon, go home, and then they were like super lazy. They would just nap. Like, and of course, they're depressed. And my dad drank a crap ton, obviously, like tons of witness dads do. And so like we'd be out in service, get home, and they'd sleep. Like that was it. TV and sleep all day. And both of them. And they were just pathetic people. Like never really did a lot of stuff. They did what they liked. So like growing up, we'd go to a bowling alley every Tuesday because they liked to bowl. Like they didn't ask me if I liked to bowl, but we bowled. Um, so that was like their thing they used to do was, and then they were like super sad. I think that my brothers and sisters had left. Like they would never speak it, but if all your kids left home and openly are opposing you at some points and giving hard times to you allegedly, they're going to be bummed about it. So like they didn't really put too much effort into doing anything with me after a while.
Did you come along like so? I guess is there a large age gap between you and your next oldest sibling?
Yeah. My older brother, I'm 30. He's just like 38 or something.
Okay.
So like, yeah, my parents, that gap, like they didn't even refer to me as like their kid. They always called me like the surprise baby or like the oops child. Like that's how I was introduced for most of my life. I was like, hey, this is Ramo. He was a surprise. He was unexpected. Like, oh, thanks. Like, appreciate that.
That's
so
gotta make you feel real special.
yeah, man, that was like for years. And then like, my mom always referred to me as her baby. Like even in comments, like or in talks from the platform, if she made a reference to me, I was her baby. And just like everyone would laugh about that and stuff, but I'm like, you guys don't understand. Like she's using that to keep me in that view. Like I can never progress in her head because she calls me that. And it's super weird, man.
Yeah, that's interesting. Notice that a lot of Jehovah's Witness parents, they don't want their kids to grow up. They don't want their
Hmm.
kids to be adults. And part of it I think is the control. Uh,
Yeah.
but in your life, it seems like your parents weren't really even seeing you. It was all about what they wanted, and you were the third wheel. You were
Yeah.
tagging along in your parents' life in a way, which is
Yeah.
terrible. That's not. Most parents, when they have a child, they're thrilled to have that child, and they want to build a life around that kid. Healthy parents anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe not most Jehovah's Witness parents.
Yeah. Normal people, yes,
Yes, yes.
100%.
Uh,
And like you see that a lot in the organization though, like because it's such a narcissistic organization, you really got to look out for yourself most of the time. And yeah, so like my mom just fully accepted her role as the woman in the house, cooked, cleaned every day, never questioned anything, kept her head. She never worked a day in her life as far as I knew her. And my dad just relished in being the head of the household, man. Like whenever we'd study something and it would come up how children are a gift from Jehovah and they are gifts like his, and he's our kids guide and everything, my dad would make it a point to look at me and be like, but I'm your dad. And I'm like, but, and always in my head that was confusing. I'm like, but I'm Jehovah's child, like I'm supposed to be doing things for him, he's providing for me. But nope, it was always a reminder, no, I brought you here, I'm your dad. And like he would say it like so belittling. He'd be like even sometimes he'd like down at me, I'm your daddy. I'm like, okay, like I don't care. But that was a point to him, like he needed that control. My dad was huge on the control aspect.
yeah, that's authority. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's almost claiming you as property,
Yes.
which is what Jehovah's Witnesses often do. They view human beings as property, objects to be controlled, not human beings with their own thoughts and feelings and emotions to be respected.
Yeah.
So yeah, well now, okay, so now that's at home.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to the Kingdom Hall. What was life like for you there? I mean, obviously you all were super busy there,
Yeah.
but for you, how did it feel to be in the Kingdom Hall? Did you have friends? Did you like giving talks or going out in service? How was it for you?
The Kingdom Hall was difficult. Like I said, I was always torn because I really liked what was going on there, but from an early age, I accepted I was garbage. I was not going to survive Armageddon. I knew I wasn't going to make it. I knew I wasn't good enough. I knew I was letting Jehovah down. And so even though I was enjoying all the recognition, because that's the only place I got it was at the Kingdom Hall. I never got any positive reinforcement, any morale boosting speeches, nothing encouraging from my parents. I would get all that from the Kingdom Hall. And like even when I hit the normal milestones as a witness man, baptized, auxiliary pioneer, all those things. Like I never got a congrats from my parents. It was always a yeah, we knew you were gonna do it. I called that. And I'm like, really? Because you could have helped at some point. That would have been nice. But no, never that. They would just always love taking credit for anything that I was doing. So like at the meetings, man. So I was born and raised in it, and I got baptized when I was 8, actually. Um,
Whoa, that's one of the younger ones I've ever heard of.
yeah.
Whoa, wow.
I got unbaptized when I was 6. I gave my first talk, which back then it wasn't just Bible reading and stuff. It was, talk a little bit, read scriptures, talk. My dad wrote my talks for like the first 5 years of my public speaking career. Um, and yeah, so like I got baptized. Like I remember it was crazy, man. Like I did it for all the total wrong reasons. So all my brothers and sisters had left home, and I'm gonna die again, and like, no little kid should be having to deal with these thoughts like this. I would have panic attacks constantly, and I didn't realize that's what it was until later at therapy. Like I'm like 8 years old reading the Bible with my family every day and having panic attacks about Armageddon and death and stuff on the couch, like like almost feeling like I'm gonna pass out because I can't breathe, and nobody's even paying attention to that. Like I'm over there dying on the couch, and my dad's doing his 5 verses that he waiting for my mom to read. That was crazy. So like being ready for all the meetings was nice. I was always prepared, always had to comment. Um, very active in service. And so like the elders and most of the elders' wives who I worked with out in service all the time were my favorite. They were my moms, man. They were the only ones showing me love, the only ones taking me out in service with them. Like it's like looking back, I could see some of the older sisters could tell that I hated my parents. So they would like try. Right after the arrangements, hey, let me take Ramo. And that like I appreciate that to this day, because being out in service with those old sisters, like Sister Jacobs, who's dead now, and she was the coolest, man. She would always take me out to lunch, always take me to like the park or something, and we just hang out. And everyone thought she was crazy. Everyone hated her, like in my congregation. She was just the loud older sister, you know. She wanted to be relevant, so she made up stories. I didn't care. We just kick it, like, so like people like that positive reinforcement was cool, but it was always held back by my parents. Like I can't tell you how many times my dad I lost my privileges because my dad decided that I couldn't have them. I wasn't being good enough for them. And I would bring up to him, like, hey, I know, I thought I was appointed these things by Jehovah. Like, who are you to take these things away from me? And then, you know, I'd just get all of my music broken, and he'd get mad that I made a valid point and threatened to beat me or kick me out in the street. He'd, yeah, compare me to my demonic brothers and sisters, and I'm dying at Armageddon. Anytime I questioned anything that he said, it was a pretty bad time. But at the hall, man, it was cool. I gave talks. The elders really cared about me. They tried to keep me involved. Like I hung out with, there was not a lot of kids my age in our congregation. So I was always out in service with the older ones. Always, I think like the youngest person I hung out with was like in his mid to late 20s up until I was like 13. And then like another kid that was a couple years older than me came to our congregation. He pretty much became like my best friend. He was actually the best man in my wedding even. But up until then, I was just hanging out with all these old people, man, just going out in service, doing my thing, giving talks. Since I got baptized so young, I wanted privileges. So like I got baptized. I wanted my family. They had all left. I used my baptism to get them all together. That was my last ditch effort to just get my family back. Like I really wanted just my family. I missed my brothers and sisters, and that was all I could do was maybe bring them all together for this great occasion, you know, something we all knew about, and then we could all be a family. And so day comes of the convention. We used to have them at the horse race track in Chicago, and they left, man, for my lunch break. When I'm getting baptized, they went to McDonald's for lunch, bro. And like
Wait,
didn't even
all your family left?
all of my siblings. My parents stood
Oh
around
man.
for it, and all my siblings like didn't even care. Like they were, and it hit me like, man, yeah, this doesn't mean anything to them anymore. And it was heartbreaking. I was so bummed about that. I failed at getting my family back together, and that sucked for a long time thinking that way, man. So
I
I
wonder if
just,
they were triggered by it. Do you think that seeing their younger brother get baptized into this was more than they could bear, so they had to leave?
man, I would like to think that. I hope so, because I speaking with them now, I'm kind of building my relationships back up with them now because I shunned them for so many years. It would seem like they did not like that I was doing that. They didn't like that my parents were allowing it to happen so young. They didn't like how I was being treated by my parents at that time. But with the way my folks are and the way they were raised, they weren't going to say nothing about it. I was too young. And like my dad's a scary dude, man. Like up until a couple years ago when I finally left, like I was terrified of my dad. He was like the scariest person in my head, and he's kind of like that to the rest of my siblings and people who talk to him too. He has this like manner of speech that's just so aggressive and matter of fact. Like he's great at preaching. That's kind of how I got good at preaching, just listening to him, and good at talks listening to him.
That's it's hard, 8 years old. Um,
Hmm.
your parents saying, "Yeah, we're not surprised." Well, yeah, because they're programming you baptized at 8 years old. I mean, no normal 8-year-old kid is like, "Hey, I want to get baptized," unless there's a lot of pressure on them to do so and to perform.
Hmm.
And I've always thought it was funny how Jehovah's Witnesses would, they'd make fun of the Catholics. They sprinkle infants. Well, I mean, you're dunking 8-year-olds. What? Like,
Yeah,
does
and
that really make you feel proud? They're
I
8
don't
years
get
old.
I don't get it. And like even the excuse me, the friends at the hall they would gas me up about it. If I went, like, I would help at in the sound department for conventions, so I would go with brothers and help. Like that'd be a thing they'd bring up. Oh, this is Ramo. He's helping us. He got baptized when he was 8. And like everyone's like, oh shit, like that's crazy. This kid must be about it. If he's helping here and he's still in it. People thought I was very spiritual to a lot of people for a lot of years.
Yeah, man. At 8 years old, 8 years old, that was right when my parents started studying, I believe. So at 8 years old, I was really about G.I. Joe
Hmm.
and maybe Transformers or GoBots at the time. Those were the things I was about, but for a Jehovah's Witness kid, you have to be about the one thing that you're allowed to really be super interested in.
Yeah, and
It
it's a
dominates
really
your life.
it's a really lame one thing. Speaking of like Transformers and stuff, like my parents were lame because they would allow me to get into things and then just destroy them in front of me to make a point that they were evil things. So like speaking of Transformers, when I was 8, it was Beast Wars. They went to a different planet, they turned into animals. It was awesome. And so like I got really into the toys. And so like anytime I would talk to anyone, like, man, just get me Beast War toy. Like I was getting baptized and doing stuff so people, get you stuff sometimes. And my nieces and nephews were into Beast Wars, so I'd get the ones they were getting rid of. And so like I had an awesome collection of Beast Wars. My dad broke every one of them in front of me because they're violent. But he waited until I had the whole collection and then broke every single one in front of my eyes because they're violent TV show.
Well, clearly that's psychological abuse. And who's being violent now?
Yeah,
The
that
toys
was.
are violent while he's breaking the toys in front of you. That's messed up. That's that's
He
um
did that
that's
with multiple things. Like I had SpiderMan. I got it, they were always like really technologically behind. Like my dad hated everything. So like I didn't get my first PC until like 2005 maybe. And like the first game I got was Spider-Man. He allowed me to spend my own money on it, encouraged me all about it, broke it right in front of me. And I'm like, dude, you could have just saved me that money. I remember like telling him, he's in my room. Anytime he came into my room and closed the door behind him, I knew it was going to be a headache. So sure enough, he comes in, we got to talk about this game. And I'm like, just have it, just take it. I know what you're going to do. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me this 2 weeks ago when I bought it? And he'd just get mad and just rant off about how ungrateful I am. And I don't know, being overcome by Satan, being worldly, gonna die. That was like pretty much the norm conversation from him off of that stuff.
but remember, he's anointed.
Yeah.
Jehovah handpicked him as a
Yes.
member of the 144,000 because he's going to rule just like he did over his household over the entire earth in heaven.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like even one of the funnier jokes I had when I got older, like as an adult, whenever it would come up that he was anointed, I would just tell him like, "Yo, don't be watching me have sex when you get up there, bro." And he'd get so embarrassed about it. Like towards the end of my witness career, like I really didn't care about anything anyone had to say about me. Everyone was like turning me into the elders all the time anyway. So I was like, I don't give a fuck. You could say whatever you want. So I was going to say whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was one of them. Like he hated whenever I said that, but I tell him like, yo, when you're up there, don't be spying on me, bro. Like I don't appreciate that.
Yeah, that's that whole thing is weird. Just to think that there are these creatures out there watching you have sex or do whatever that you do in life. That's
Yeah.
weird.
It is super weird. I hate it. Or even like how much witnesses are afraid of demons. Like, yo, these powerful entities have nothing better to do but rattle your windows at night. That's cool. Like, you should feel special. Like, I'd feel thankful. Hey, you want to hang out? Let's hang out, demon. But no, they're terrified that their light switch went off and on. Get out of here.
My wife has a story about a sister in her hall that called my wife's mom and was all like, I have demons in the house and I'm terrified and blah, blah, blah. And when she started asking her about the demons, like, what was it? She's like up in my attic, like you just see these little flashes of light. It was lightning bugs. She had lightning bugs in her attic. She thought it was demons.
That's awesome. Yes, that's great.
But when you're worked up that way and you're afraid of things and you've built it up, then it's hard to imagine that there could be a reasonable explanation for it. It's got to be something supernatural because you're that special.
Yeah, that's it. It's me. It's me versus Satan right now. He's gonna get me. So that's hilarious.
Satan singled you out for lightning bugs in your attic.
Yeah, that's like how narcissistic they are, man. Everything's about them.
Absolutely.
I've been a part of like pioneers going into spiritually weak brothers' house and just throwing away all of their shit because everything's demonic. They heard something in their attic similar. It could have been a raccoon or anything, who knows? But no, me and some other brothers went in, threw away all their books, threw away all their drawings, all of their movies that we thought could have been demonic. That's so cringe, man. Like, I hate that we did that stuff. It's so embarrassing. That's crazy.
Okay, so on the flip side of all this, you had school. Now you said you were homeschooled at some point, right?
Yeah.
Was it the whole time, or did you go to school at some point?
I went to school, I think kindergarten and like part of first grade.
Oh. Wow.
I vaguely remember it just being a bad time because I'm a witness. I can't do anything. Like, I remember kindergarten, we had to make these pumpkins. All this stuff has recently come up, like listening to your show and going through these questions. So this is awesome. We had to make pumpkins. I can't make a pumpkin. That's, pagan. So I get into a fight with my teacher, like we're shouting and I'm crying, like I cannot do this. And for my sake, I was more afraid of my parents than the religion at that point. Like, I'm gonna get beat if I make this pumpkin. You don't get this. I just saw my mom break a back scratcher over my sister's back this morning. Like, I'm gonna get beat if I make this pumpkin. And so like they had to call my mom. It was a whole ordeal. She came into school, but she was like, oh no, you did the right thing. And she said, you know what, you can make the pumpkin, don't put the face on it. And I'm like, man, so like, I wish you could have told me that earlier. You would have saved me all this embarrassment.
Yeah.
Like, I was fighting with my teacher over this. And it got to the point where I would literally do nothing in school. We had like a thing in the gymnasium. Nope, it's safer if I just didn't. And then I was getting in trouble in kindergarten, like in timeout in the corner. the extent of trouble you could get in kindergarten. I was in timeout all the time. I never got to play with the kids because I was always rebelling, but it was because I didn't feel like I could do anything. They watched The Grinch, and she's like, it's a Christmas movie. She's like, but it's not like about, like, he's against. She tried explaining it to me. And I sat in the back of the classroom with my head in a desk because I was afraid of shaming my parents and Jehovah, man. I remember during that same Christmas year, like we made ornaments. The least pagan of the ornaments was a snowman. And so like I took that, nope, I did the wrong thing right away, got yelled at and hit in the car. So I remember I was so mad that I had fucked up. I was like, dang it, like I thought this one would be okay. And so I just broke it. I was crying in the car. I broke it and I threw it out the window and I felt better. But then I got beat for throwing it out the window because I felt bad. Like my conscience hurt that I made it. And then I forgot that my conscience was supposed to hurt that I littered. So I guess I messed up that one. But yeah, school was bad. So like the first time I heard about homeschooling or they like explained it to me, I was like, yes, if I can get out of school and stop this embarrassment, yeah, I don't want that no more. But
just think about that. How old you say you are now? 30?
That's like 5 or 6.
But how old are you in life today?
Oh, I'm 30.
30. So
yeah.
25 years ago, you were in school for a year to a year and a half, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And just think about what being a witness did to you in that year and a half. I mean, and being a witness in particular in your family as well. But it's crazy to think how such small exposure to the world,
Mm-hmm.
had such a big impact as far as how your family treated you, and just the scars that had to be formed on your little brain as a 5, 6 year old,
Yeah.
trying to navigate, like, okay, so I can color the pumpkin, I just can't put the face on the pumpkin. Okay, so you're like, what was it? There's a scripture that the witnesses used to use, straining out the gnat and gulping down the camel.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's like, oh, well, you can have the pumpkin, but not the face. And we're going to beat the hell out of you later. And that's going to somehow be okay. But
Yeah.
don't you dare draw a face on this pumpkin.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy that like my parents will deny ever laying a hand on me. Like today, I'm like, what? Like you're crazy. How are you? Did you forget that? I didn't. I got some scars to show them. But yeah, that's like thinking back. No, I just feel bad for like not me in particular because screw old me. I feel bad for like the kids doing that now. Like these poor children having to deal with those mental gymnastics. Like every day is a struggle. What am I going to have to face? How am I going to be embarrassed today? What's going to hurt me today? That sucks, man. Like that bums me out just knowing that there's so many kids still doing that, and that like you said, it was a year and a half for me, and that shit hurt to this day. And like I can't imagine doing all through high school with it. That's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really sad and scary how many kids out there are being hurt mentally, emotionally, and sometimes physically over the religious teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses and
Mm-hmm.
their particular belief system. How did you? So you're introduced to homeschool, and
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine why that would be appealing. Like that sounds like, hey, yeah, I'll do anything to get out of this. So how did homeschool go for you?
So
Because that's
they,
early. Most people don't
yeah,
start that early.
no, they didn't. And yeah, I was hyped. I was ready to not be in school. I was ready to not have to sit for the Pledge of Allegiance or leave the room. And my teacher used to like grab me by my arm and like yank me out of the room before the Pledge of Allegiance because that was a requirement for it. And for my parents, my religion. And man, I hated that. That was embarrassing. But homeschooling was cool. I literally remember my dad doing it with me twice, two times, like 2 days in a row, and then pawning it off on one of my siblings while they were there. So I remember like my brother doing it once, my sister doing it once, but then they left home like very soon after that. They were young teens, and so like that was a whole ordeal. There was a lot of shit popping off at home. So like I just got lost in the mix of homeschool got pushed way, way, way to the non-existent back burner, and it just never got picked up. My mom would never help me with it. I don't know. I know she doesn't have like a high school diploma, so I don't know like how dumb my mom is. Or I guess that's a mean way of saying it. I don't know how smart my mom or intelligent or educated she is.
Educated is a
There you
good word.
go.
Be perfectly smart or intelligent and not go through school, but
Right.
education, yes.
I don't know how much formal education my mom has had, but she had like my oldest sibling when she was like 14 or something. So like it couldn't have been much. So I don't know if that's why she never helped me. I never asked her, but like never once did she help me with my homeschooling.
Did you have, at least in recent history, that from my observing my own family homeschooling my youngest siblings? I went to public school, but from observing it, uh, from what I understood, at least back then, there weren't necessarily programs for younger kids. Like I think once you got to middle school, there were some
Yeah.
programs you could get into, but it was kind of up to the parents to figure out what to do for kids that were younger than maybe middle school age. So, like, what did you even do? Did you have a program? Were you given books, or like, what was what was your schooling?
So I remember we had this one, it came in the mail, this big ass white box. It was like Norton or something. And it had the books in there. It had some activities for kids, like the blocks that you could count, some crayons, some Play-Doh stuff, and that was homeschooling for my handful of lessons that I received as a kid. And I remember coloring some circles. I remember stacking some blocks, and then that was it. There was nothing substantial in that. And I was always terrified to go back to that box. Like over the years when I'd be begging my parents to like let me go to school or letting them know how stupid I felt, they'd be like, go do your books. They're there. You got them. And I'm like 13 now. Like those books aren't going to do anything for me.
Yeah. Wanting something a little more challenging probably at that point in life. It's somebody that I previously interviewed, Torah Bontrager. I can't remember the episode number off the top of my head, but she works in the Amish community, and one of her platforms is that children should be guaranteed the right to have a secular education or a healthy education.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really sad to think that, here you are, a little Jehovah's Witness kid. You're not being provided an opportunity for just a basic education by your parents. And how can that be okay? That shouldn't be okay.
Like, shouldn't they have gone to jail for that one? Like, there's probably multiple reasons. I'm sure that's one of them. Like, don't you have to report your kid at some point? I don't know.
Well, if it's religious, then people kind of turn the other way.
Mm-hmm.
If it was just basic truancy and you're not going to school when you're supposed to go to school, then yes, parents can get in trouble for that. But if you take your kid out of school, for religious reasons to educate them, then religion has a lot of power. So.
Yeah, that's true. Then maybe that's how they got away with it all those years. But yeah, so homeschooling was nothing. I used to read the Watchtowers and Wakes. That's literally what they would tell me. Read the Watchtowers and Wakes. You ever hear like that bullshit line, like reading 2 years of the Watchtower and Wakes like a college degree or some shit like that go over?
Yes, if you read the Wake magazine alone for like 4 years, that's the equivalent of a 4-year university degree.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
So I was really hoping, man. I was like, yes, I'm gonna be college educated right now. So I remember
Ramo.
Yeah, I was like, what do you need to know about watching the world? I'm about it. Remember that? You remember those articles in the Awake? And then when they took the watching the world part out, I was so sad. That was
the only part I liked.
Me too, man. I was learning about the fishes and shit, but they were like, nope, kids don't get nothing until these propaganda cartoons way later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then you were homeschooled your entire school career, pretty much.
Yeah.
Did you ultimately graduate, or did you get your GED or something?
Yeah, way later. Like after I was married and everything, I needed to get a career going, so I needed to do that. But I tried to go back to school like every year pretty much. I would ask my mom like, hey, you think I'd go to school? And she'd be like, go ask your dad. And then I go talk to my dad, and my loving anointed father would remind me how stupid I'm going to feel and how much they're going to make fun of me and how much I don't need school because Armageddon's coming very soon. And so to avoid that conversation or going any further, or hating myself anymore, I would just take that as an answer. And that went on every year until I left, like until I was like 16. I used to ask.
I am really sorry that happened to you. That's horrible.
Thanks, man.
I mean, all the beatings, lots of things not good in this situation. But being deprived of that, and then just the soul crushing, nobody wants to feel behind others or like they're less intelligent or whatever. And it's just so unfair. It's such a brutally unfair thing to do to a kid.
When I got my GED, so I started going to like GED classes when I was 18, and my dad was 100% against it because why do I need education? And my mom my parents like never trusted me with anything to do anything. So my mom, to keep an eye on me, started going to GED classes with me. because there was girls there and I'm going to have sex with the girls there, of course. But the cool thing was she's getting an education. So I was like, yeah, like come with me. This is awesome. She thought I was going to hate it, but I was like, yeah, like learn.
So did she get her GED? I have to know.
No. No, as soon as I left home and I got mine, she stopped her formal education. She was trash at it anyway, unfortunately. But like I remember getting my GED and I had no one to call. I can't call my siblings and share this great moment with them. Witnesses are all smarter than me. They all went to school and shit. So I'm not going to be like, hey, I got my GED. So I called my dad, man. He was the only person I could think of. And I'm like, yo, dad, I just got to let you know, man, finally got my GED, feeling proud, going to start applying for places. No congrats, no like good job. Just, yeah, I knew it. This is what I knew all along, son. I knew you'd be fine. I knew you're going to get a job and be okay. You're going to be all right. Now you could just serve Jehovah and feel better about yourself, huh? And I was like, wow. And I was just like, you know what, dad? Like, yeah, man, that's cool. And that was like the last time I ever shared anything with him that was positive for me because I was done. Like, couldn't even get anything from that. He tried to take credit for that too. And I was like, man, like, fuck you, bro. Like, this one's me.
Yeah, yeah. You've got to own that for yourself, Ramo. My wife had the same thing. She eventually got her GED. When we got married, I was like, hey, you probably ought to get this just in case. So I encouraged her, and she got her GED because she had been homeschooled and discouraged from actually doing homeschooling and by her parents. And so she got her GED, and she called her parents. They couldn't care less.
Yeah.
Mattered nothing to them.
That's so crushing, man. Like, these people, like my folks, the people who made me lie about my education for decades, the people who made me partake in a fake graduation party that the brothers and sisters threw for people and included me in it, they made me partake of that. I didn't want to. They made me accept gifts. They made me tell people I was graduating 8th grade, even though it was bullshit, because they were embarrassed. They had nothing, no positivity to share when I had something to share with them. When I finally accomplished something that I felt proud of, the people that made me feel so shitty about that thing couldn't do anything for me. And I was really bummed about that. I was like, man, thanks guys. Like, appreciate that.
Yeah, that's really, really unfair. It's usually a projection of their own insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to give it any weight because then it would make them feel bad for having held you back for all those years.
Yeah.
And they don't want to look at it, so they just oh well, yeah, of course, right? But it's all about them.
It is.
And that's a shame because should have been able to celebrate with you. That would have been the loving thing to do.
That's all I've ever like wanted from them, and I'm sure other people who grew up with shitty parents can feel that too. But like, man, all I wanted was a normal mom and dad. Like, I understand you could be a fanatical religious person and you could be a shitty parent. Like, why'd you have to be both of them? Like that, you picked both things. Like, there's the witnesses. Like in your podcast, the witnesses are like, my childhood was great. The Kingdom Hall sucked, and the witnesses were like, the Kingdom Hall was great. My home life sucked. Like, I'm like, damn, everything sucked. Like, because they never let me enjoy anything. They just killed everything for me as much as they could.
Yeah, and that's really a reflection of their limitations, their limited, mental and emotional tools, their history and everything. But it hurts because it all ends up being projected upon you. You are the recipient of all those issues that they have, and it's just it's very unfair. So if you went through homeschool your whole life, um, at some point you said you lived a double life. So what I'm just going to ask is, so you're baptized at 8, so you're baptized super young.
Yeah.
How does life progress for you after baptism? I mean, obviously you said like you would go do sound or whatever with brothers and do things. But how do you even get to have an opportunity for a double life?
Yeah.
You're not exposed to people. So And I mean, your mom's following you to GED class at
Yeah,
18. So how in the world, where there's a will, there's a way. So how does
yeah.
Ramo find any other type of life? How does your life progress from 8 years old?
I realized early that the more active I was in the witness stuff, the more they were limited. So, like, my mom is a sister; she can't do shit, you know. So the more I do, the more she has to stay away. Same with my dad. Now, for growing up most of my life, my dad wasn't allowed to have privileges, and I'm sure we might get to why, but I didn't know why. So he would just tag along with my shit. But there came certain things that you just can't, you don't have that privilege. You can't have access to these things. And so me going away for a weekend to work on a convention, that's me going to hang out with brothers that are introducing me to stuff. That's me hanging out with people who are showing me things. Me going to GED class, that's learning, that's me associating with people, my teacher actually interacting. And the further I got in that, the more my mom had to stay back, because then she wasn't advancing. And so the more active I was like in the organization, the more space I could have, oddly enough.
Hmm.
Even like always saying I just wanted to go to Bethel. Like, what's your goals? And I was like, ministerial servant, pioneer, Bethel. I realized super early on that the more ridiculous I sounded as a witness, the better witness I was. So like when as an example, when we'd be phone witnessing, I'd always just be like, hey, we're offering free home Bible studies. Are you interested? No. Okay, that was an easy one. And people would be like, why don't you get more in depth? And I'd be like, we don't waste Jehovah's Spirit. and
Yeah, that is a perfect point. If the spirit
yeah,
and the angels are leading this,
yeah,
why would you not just be like, hey, want a Bible study? Because the
yeah,
angel's gonna make you do this. I don't like it shouldn't be me having to convince you. It's an
yeah.
excellent point. I like that.
So like I would, and no one could question that. I'm like, you wasting Jehovah's Spirit? I'm trying to preach in all the nations here, folks. Like, let's get things moving. Where are you at? And then, they'd leave me alone. So like the more ridiculous shit you say as a witness, the more good of a witness you are. And and I just got really good at that. What do you want to be? I was on a convention, man. I'm the next fucking Timothy, bro. That's how good at talking I was getting. And like, I'm over here like, watching porn and rated R movies that night. Like it doesn't matter what you say, but the crazier you sound, the better of a witness you are. And that's what I accepted. So like I was just saying crazy witness shit, all the time. The world's ending. I'd be out in service. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, hey, we're here to save your life. And the people in the door would look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, and like other brothers and sisters would look at me like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this is serious stuff, isn't it? We try to pretend like it's such a big deal. Why are you acting like it's not? And they were like, man, you're right.
I love you. That is awesome. That is
And
so awesome. I never thought of that angle. Just play it up even bigger and
yeah,
even like more extreme than it is.
yeah. I'm like, Armageddon's coming. Like, what are we doing? We need to be going. Like, and then they would leave me alone. Like, oh, he's fine. He sounds crazy. He's a good witness, sure. And then so that's what gave me my space to lead my double life. And it wasn't even the worst double life. Like, fortunately, when I come across my brothers and sisters, they teach me some stuff. They'd show me good music. They'd show me cool. They got me into comic books. We moved into an apartment building, and like my 4 out of the 6 neighbors were witnesses. And my next door neighbor, he's such a cool dude. He got me into guitar, got me into music, got me into comics. So I'm just taking in all this stuff that's way better than Jehovah's Witness literature, and it's opening my eyes to more things, more things that aren't bad. Like, okay, Spider-Man's just a fucking book. Like, it doesn't affect my psyche or make me want to go beat someone up. It's not that bad. And
You mean you didn't want to go swing on webs and save people?
yeah, who'd have thought? Like, I just want to read something other than the Revelation book. Fuck me, right?
Oh, yeah,
Um,
and the Revelation book is crazier than any Spider-Man comic you're ever going to read. So, the Revelation
yeah,
bad fever dream.
Oh yeah. And so like that was me. At the meeting, I was extreme because first of all, I wholeheartedly believed it all. I knew I was never good enough for it, but man, if I could just do my best, maybe Jehovah knows my heart. Like he knows I'm not evil. He knows I don't fucking hate him. Maybe I can make it if I just do these things fine and try to be better. And so that was my mentality. And as far as like the double life, it was just thinking on my own, man. Like my actual life was thinking. I can remember like at least 5 times growing up where I doubted the truth. And oh man, I fucking hate myself for going back to it every single time. Like I remember I was 16 and I was watching a documentary that on like the History Channel, and it was about the flood of Noah's day. And it was like, logically speaking, this and that. Critically thinking, we would apply this to this. And that was hitting me. I was like, man, that's making sense. Like this flood, the whole world. I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty crazy. And then the next day, man, the Sunday talk was about Noah. And so, of course, it's Jehovah just telling me that my faith was weak. I gotta have stronger faith. That's what I took from that talk. And like stuff like that, man, just kept me in for a long time.
Well, and what that really shows is, there are so many ways that that we were kind of programmed to look for things to reaffirm what we already had. There was a certain amount of cognitive bias there, where so you're taught that if you doubt, you need stronger faith or whatever, and that Jehovah, these talks on the weekends. Like sometimes it's food at the proper time.
Yeah.
And so you just happen to, it was just coincidence that happened, but yet you ascribe meaning to it because you're taught to. And, it wasn't just another crazy talk on Noah's Ark. It was Jehovah speaking directly. Jehovah knew, and he made sure that talk was going to be on that day and that it was scheduled out in advance. So that because he knew you were going to watch that documentary the day before.
Yeah. Be up late night watching it.
Right. Now, he couldn't have predicted what Adam and Eve were going to do or what Satan was going to do as an angel when he fell. But he couldn't predict any of that. But he's got you on the talk on Sunday.
Yeah, man. He couldn't make me go to school or help me out financially when I needed a car, but that talk was there for me when I needed it, and I am so grateful for it. Like,
you're blessed. You're blessed.
Absolutely. So stuff like that, like my double life wasn't too hectic. I would just try to be away from my parents as much as I could, go for walks. They started raising my youngest sister's first kid. They raised as an infant to about maybe 8 years old. So I just take him to the park. I'm like, hey, come on, man, let's go hang out. Like, let's get out of here. Like, and I just hang out with him. And I feel super shitty because when I started leaving home and doing my own thing, like I would just leave him behind, and I should have been a little different with that. But for a long time, it was just him and me just being away, man. I just tried to take him away from it because I'd see him being as angry as I was at his age and being fed up with all the same bullshit. And I'm like, yo, come on, we got to go. Let's go outside. Let's go skate. Let's go listen to some music. And to this day, like, he still listens to all the same music I used to play for him when he was little and stuff. And he's still into some really good bands that I like. But that was it, man. Just trying to be away.
What a terrible human being you were, Ramo, to take on a small child as your pet project and to try to help this kid. Like, they're acting like if you're going to be worldly or what, like this double life is going to be such a horrible thing. You were trying to protect a child, and I hope you can forgive yourself because you were a kid too, and you're not responsible for that child. You did the best you could, as far as you weren't going to be able to save him from a lot of things, and at a point sometimes you have to save yourself, and that's all you can do. It's hard enough to do that in the process of all of this.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry it worked out that way, but I hope you can find some forgiveness and compassion for yourself because you weren't trying to neglect anybody. You were just you're a kid yourself trying to grow up and try to figure a way out of this mess.
That's it, yeah.
You know,
And I'm working on that. I'm working like in my for stuff and letting go is the biggest things in therapy for me. Like most of us
oh yeah,
ex-JWs, you know.
yeah, yeah. We were trained to
Mhm.
beat ourselves up for things that happen. I mean, that's one of the things that comes up when I coach people all the time. You know, there's perfectionism, this expectation of control that we could have somehow done better always,
Yeah.
because we were always told we were never good enough. We were just a piece of shit. So we kind of internalize that sometimes and look for the ways to label ourselves a piece of shit in any circumstance or situation.
Yeah,
And it's
man.
not
And
true.
that's a running theme. That's crazy. That's all of us. You know,
Oh,
everyone's
it's
hating themselves. That's nuts.
yeah. I had to deal with it myself years ago when I was waking up. I was suicidal because I felt like I was such a piece of shit. So
Hmm.
I totally understand. And you know, when I work with people, that's one of the things we almost always have to work with. And it's not even just, you know, I work with people who uh, as a coach, who aren't even ex Jehovah's Witnesses at times, who are from other groups, other cults, even. And same thing there. Taught to just, you know, pummel their body and lead it as a slave because they were good for nothing or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
wretched man that I am.
I can't even direct my own step, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. The heart is treacherous. Who can know it? So why would you ever
Yeah.
trust yourself?
Yep.
You know, so those things were used and weaponized against us. You know, you were just a kid. You weren't going to be able to save your sister's child. You know,
Hmm.
you could only do so much. Sometimes self preservation is all you've got the tools and energy for.
Yeah, and the witnesses don't even like teach that or employ it at all. It's you got to be selfless. You know, we're saving everyone. It's we got to save the world right now, and you're never supposed to put yourself first. You know, it's Jehovah, the congregation, and then you know you could be down here maybe if you got some time left. But it took a long time for me to realize. You know, we put the safety mask on ourselves or the oxygen mask on ourselves before we could help someone else. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would have never tried to be a coach if I hadn't worked through all my own things
Hell yeah.
over the
Yeah.
process of many, many years.
Hmm.
You know, who would I be to even try to help someone at that point? You have to help yourself before you can help anybody else,
Yeah.
and have something that looks good. You know, and I mean, not that anyone's perfect; everyone's a work in progress. But you have to
Hmm.
have certain base skills, and we weren't given anything as Jehovah's Witnesses. It was an emotional desert. There was nothing there for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Like my parents, man, are so like just closed off. Like no real, I can't even remember having like a real conversation. Like talking, let's talk about feelings. Let's talk about what you enjoy. Like, no, I can't like, is an example. My dad is so insensitive. I woke up one morning, he said, "Hey, your mom's got cancer. Just so you know. It could be bone cancer, and that's the real bad one." And he walked out my room. That's how he told me my mom had breast cancer. And so everything's said and done. My mom has her operation, thinks she had her lymph nodes removed, and it was a success. Everything went in remission. We do the day text and 2 chapters of the Bible every day. My mom is so out of it in bed in the hospital. We go to visit her. He's making her do the day text and the 2 chapters of the Bible. And she's like falling asleep while we're reading. And I'm like, just looking at this man and thinking, like, how are you an adult to not realize like she can't do this right now? Can we not just sit and be happy that she survived right now? But nope, gotta praise Jehovah, man. And that's the kind of guy my dad is. Like he is so disconnected and not aware of what's going on, but he's all about the truth, you know.
Yeah, um, it's what it kind of shows. For a lot of people, this is compulsory. It's just a
Mhm.
compulsion at a point. They're addicted to this stuff.
Yeah.
So I remember my dad would go to meetings and give public talks. He had kidney failure. He was diabetic. He was literally blind in one eye, had a cataract on the other, in terrible shape. And he would still get up there and stumble up to the stage and give public talks, or he would go out in service. He'd fall off people's porches
Oh my
because
God.
he had neuropathy, so he couldn't feel his feet. The nerves had pretty much
Yeah.
died. And so and he would do all of this, and you would look at him and think, man, that guy's devoted, right? That guy
Yeah.
loves Jehovah. No, that guy didn't love Jehovah. That guy was just doing the thing that he thought was right
Yeah.
and that he had been told was right. And he couldn't not do it.
Yeah.
He couldn't stop. And so it just shows what an addiction a lot of times this ends up being. It's an escape from other things. It was the only place where he felt important. He got love bombed. He was an elder, blah, blah, blah. He felt like he had a purpose. But all of that was because he had developed nothing for himself in his life.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing whatsoever other than that.
Man, that sounds just like mine. He's unhealthy motherfucker. He had diabetes so bad he lost like 100 pounds in a month once. And someone at work tested his blood sugar and it was like over 500. And so and that's that dude. But it was all about control. The organization was all he had. I can't tell you how many times I did the field service arrangement because I started getting privileges super early because I got baptized so young. So field service arrangements was one of the early ones even. And here's this little 10-year-old kid taking out the groups. And man, I can't tell you how many times they redid all of my arrangements. I would purposely put myself somewhere else. No, right after the arrangement, there's my parents redoing everything. I remember once a sister sticking up for me and I was like 18. Did the arrangements, did the car groups. There goes my dad right after. Nope, this, that. And the sister's like, the brother spoke. And my dad straight goes, shut up to her. Straight checked her at the hall. And I remember just laughing. I was waiting for her to slap him or something. No, she just ate that. She just took it and just walked out, head down. And I was like, damn, this is the power he has here. And it just really pointed out why he's so about it. Cause that's what he gets. He gets, those are the perks, that's gross. That's crazy.
Wow. Isn't it? It's interesting. A lot of times the people who are the most about control are often the people who are the most out of control in their own life.
Dang, that's such a great point.
They're searching for control where they can find it. So he can find it by saying, shut up to that sister or by rearranging your car groups, but he's not taking care of himself physically.
Yeah, there it is.
So for yourself, did you pioneer or do anything as you got older or reach out in the congregation for privileges? And did you do any of it sincerely, or was it all part of the plan to act crazy and extreme so they would leave you alone?
It was both. I needed that positive reinforcement, like any kid does. So I wanted to make Jehovah happy. As soon as I could, I started auxiliary pioneering. I had nothing else to do but be out in service, and it really annoyed my parents to have to stay out longer to get my hours because they weren't auxiliary pioneers. My dad, I found out later why he couldn't be. He couldn't get a pioneer status or an auxiliary pioneer status, so he had to be there though because I'm a kid. And you're not trusting me with anyone else. So guess what, motherfucker? We're going to be out 70, 80 hours a month then. You're going to be driving me around, taking me to my return visits. And he would be so annoyed with me out in service because I would just make up return visits when I was a kid. I'd be like, oh, I got one at this greenhouse over here. And you're not going to tell a little kid who wants to serve his God he doesn't have a return visit. But I already knew that. I knew he wasn't going to tell me no. I just knew I could be petty and annoy the shit out of him. So I'm like, hey, I got to return visit Dad. I got to go over here. You got to come with me and talk to them. And you do it. He was really good at preaching. So, but I hit all the normal milestones auxiliary pioneering. Mics. I was almost a really young ministerial. I almost got ministerial at 16, which is unheard of.
Yeah, that's crazy young.
Yeah, but they were like, okay, you need to cut your hair because I would just let my hair grow until they told me to cut it because, they control everything. There's no making them happy. So I would just wait until they told me something and then do it. I almost made ministerial servant, but I fucked up because the CEO came and they told me to cut my hair. So I just shaved my head. And I live in Chicago, so I look like a gangbanger. And I can't be looking like a gangbanger or in a gang and be serving Jehovah. So nope, they took all my privileges away for a little bit. But they started nitpicking. So not only did I shave my hair that time, I had a wallet with a chain out in service. Couldn't do that. It was never an issue before, but they just started pointing all the things they didn't like about me. My shoes, my dress shoes had a buckle on the side that I didn't buckle. So they didn't even let me give my part that I had for the CO that night. They wouldn't let me on stage. And yeah, they just like stripped it all away from me real quick. Like, boom, you don't get nothing. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, I don't care. But it would come all back because I'm not doing anything wrong, like in their eyes, as far as they know. But I'd get them all back super quick. I used to do the literature orders for the congregation. Um, when that other person came, he was my best friend. He was another young guy, so he was like a couple years older than me. We started getting privileges together, and he hated that I was younger and getting all the stuff that he was doing. And I remember one time, like we were chilling, and he even told me, he's like, "Man, Ramo, all you got on me is seniority." He's like, "You just got the years, bro." He's like, "You just know the Bible a little bit more than me." He's like, "You know some scriptures." He's like, "That's all they like about you." Like he was pointing out why I'm progressing further than him and why he's mad about it. And this is my best friend though. Cool. And I'm like, whatever, Dave. Like you want it, have it, dude. Like go study harder. Like I don't give a fuck. I've been in this my whole life. Yeah, I know it. Like it's not a big like I was just trying to convey to him it doesn't matter.
Yeah, go
But
back and get baptized at 8, Dave.
yeah, like yo, I've been here, bro.
Yeah.
And so like I didn't give a fuck though whenever someone would say stuff like that, because there was others like, "Oh, you're only getting it because you've been here so long." I'm like, so I've been here though. Like I put up with it. And it felt like that. Like I paid my dues. I put up with all that shit. I'm gonna run this congregation now. And sure enough, I did. I sounded crazy, but I was running. I did literature. I redid all of the territories. I was putting in pioneer hours. I helped with anything they wanted, the brothers, just to get away, like I said. So like I was a good ass witness, man. I was doing it all, dude. I was a pioneer for a year and a half. Almost made ministerial again at 18, 19, but got in trouble again. That time a little more substantial. And I got reproved, and then I lost my pioneer status and I lost my almost ministerial status. But after that, I didn't give a shit anymore. Like I stopped reaching out, like pretty much after that last reproving. But I used to get in trouble a lot, like for just how I dressed, the music I listened to, my hair. Like I said, I would let it grow until they said it, and I would lose my privileges when I let it grow, cut it, lose my privileges for getting a cut, get them back, and it was just a vicious cycle like that in my congregation.
And that's the hair thing got me.
No offense, I should have said that.
So, but if you looked like me, if you were white and shaved your head, would they have had a problem with it?
Nope, there was bald white and black brothers in our congregation. It was because our congregation was in a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood, and with my head shaved, I was a stereotype to them. There's full grown men telling me that in so many words that and stereotyping me, and that's bringing reproach on Jehovah's name. So I can't do stuff for a little bit.
That's crazy. I mean, because you were doing things, you were responding to their counsel,
Mm-hmm.
and for them to do that to you, that's really sad. Yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses definitely have. They're all about appearances, and they definitely stereotype and judge a lot based on whatever color of your skin, your height, your hairline, your face. Oh, God forbid you have facial hair. You're
Oh
clearly
yeah.
a terrible person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just ridiculous. Whether you're male or female, that obviously impacts a lot of how you're treated as well. It's a shame. So how then did life go for you? So you're 18, you've got your GED.
Mm-hmm.
You've gone through that portion of your life. How did you go to any additional schooling, or how'd your adulthood play out before you left?
For sure. So we moved from Chicago to a small town. My dad retired early, and we met these random brothers and sisters. It was so random, man. Like I regret the day I was at Romeoville Assembly Hall in Chicago where they have them, and I was throwing out garbage, and I saw this dude, and I just said hi. And that changed the trajectory of my life, man. Like, I pinpointed it to that one dude, and we started kicking it, and they were really cool. They liked me a ton. My parents are real, like, spiritual, so first impressions with them are like awe-inspiring. Like, oh, you read the Bible every day, you're anointed, what? Like, you got baptized in prison, what? So, like, they're really impactful on first impressions, but they're just really shitty people the more you get to know them. So, like, I didn't want to move because my congregation was used to us. I've been in the same congregation my whole life. We even moved further out of the territory, and my parents wanted to go to that congregation, but I begged them. I'm like, no, let's go to Central. Like, we need to be there. There's where all my friends are. But it was because I knew it was people having to adjust to them. Like, I knew I would have to go through all the embarrassment again. I knew, like, they would have to find out who my parents, how they really are. And so I didn't want to do that. But when they moved to Kiwani, like, I kind of didn't have a choice. I was still very physically in, mentally in. So I couldn't just go live with my brothers and sisters. They're worldly. I had no skills, no knowledge of anything. So I couldn't do anything. I was into some shady stuff. So I was kind of over that. Like, I was like, all right, a fresh start isn't too bad. So we moved to Kiwani. I'm around 17. And Bethel's coming up, man. You know, a couple more years, Bethel, like, that's all I'm talking about. Like, I need to get the fuck out of my house. Like, I need to get away from my parents. Bethel, I don't care they don't pay me shit. I don't care I don't have a life. I just need to get away from my parents. And
why just Bethel? Why not like Gilead or missionary service where you can go to a whole other country?
Bethel was the safest. Like, I'm scared. You know, like, they raised me to be terrified. So going to Guam or something, I'm not going to take the chances of not being in the U.S. I'm terrified. Oh, so Bethel was my move. And then someone told me about marriage. And broke it down. So when we moved to a small town, tons of 18, 17, 19 to 20 are getting married. And I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, why are these people so young and getting married? Obviously, it's to have sex, one of the main reasons. And it's a small town. There's nothing else to do. Most of them don't get married in Kingdom Halls because they're all reproved because they've been fooling around already. It's just this crazy theme in these small town congregations. But for me, when someone pointed out marriage and you could be married at 18, it registered like, man, I could have this person who supports and loves me, who has my back, who I can show love for, and they'll reciprocate it. So, man, that was right up my alley. Like, I can move out, I could be with this person I care about, they'll care about me. That was appealing. And so I'm 17, I'm a kid, I'm in no position to get married. So I start talking to the elders about it. Like, hey, there's this sister I'm interested in. Like, what do I got to do to, because, you know, you can't date. Despite how, I don't know how you even get married. You kind of just quick. But, like, I was like, all right, there's a sister I'm interested in. What do I got to do for you guys to not give me a hard time? That's basically what I said to them. And the two elders that I was really close with, when I love them to this day. They don't fuck with me anymore though. But they told me, like, you need to get a job, you need to get a car, you need to get your own place. And it was the first time someone had told me secular stuff. Like, that wasn't witness stuff. And that blew my mind. I was like, oh man, like, all right, I need to do these things to get that life. And so that's what I focused on. I started getting a job. I started going to get my GED. I started getting things in order to start courting this sister. And so I got married at 18. And I was married for like 10 years, man.
Wow, you got married at 18. So, now wait a minute. You didn't even have your, because you didn't have your GED yet.
Nope.
I remember, well, how old was she?
She had just turned 20.
Okay.
Like, just.
Okay. Because I remember in congregations when we were growing up, I had a friend who, and he chased every skirt that came through, man. Like, he just wanted so badly to be married to anybody. And I remember many times we would have talks at the Kingdom Hall about kind of what the elders told you. Like, you know, you got to be able to provide for your family.
Yeah,
and so you're going to you're the head of the family. So you've got to have a job and a place to live and all these things. And I just remember how many times this particular brother and some other young brothers in the congregation were just told basically like, you can't date. Like that they would want to date some sister, and the elders would like pull them aside and be like, no, like you don't qualify to date anybody. You're not court
Yeah.
anybody. You're not, you don't have a job, or you don't meet these certain qualifications. And so I'm surprised they let you at 18 get married like that. That's interesting.
It wasn't easy because so many people do that. A lot of elders, and it's such a theme over the generations, a lot of elders won't actually give the talks in small towns because they don't want to be responsible when the marriage fails later. They don't want to be like, oh, well, you gave the talk. And that actually happens. Like, people are really bitter when they split up out here. And there's so many that I know that got married around the time I was that are even split up now and are very bitter that the witnesses allowed them to do it. And I get it, like, who the fuck is supposed to be getting married at 18? Like, don't encourage that shit. What is wrong with you?
Oh, no. I mean, my wife and I have been married now for 20 years. And, so I was 22, and she was 19. And I mean, both of us will tell you, like, we had no business getting married at 22 and 19. We had no idea who we were. We had no idea what we liked. We had no idea what real life was, or how you never, because you don't date, you don't know how to have relationships with members of the opposite sex. Really, a lot of times you just like, we had no business getting married. I mean, it's worked out in the end, but it was very hard for a long time.
Thank Jehovah.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. 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 It's been so much better the 5 years we've been outside Jehovah's Witnesses.
I bet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, night and day. As Jehovah's Witnesses, it was so much harder, so much more awful. Because we were unhealthy. We were two dysfunctional kids from two dysfunctional families living in a dysfunctional cult, getting married. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, exactly, man. There is no foundation at all for any sort of healthy relationship ever in there. Like, it's crazy how things work. I'm so happy yours is working, because like, that's rare. That's a rarity, man. And look, it took you guys leaving and for it to keep going like that. That's good. Like,
yeah, I mean, leaving is what really made it start to get healthier, because finally we could pursue individual pursuits and be two good individuals because Jehovah's Witnesses have this messed up, that's whole like the two become one flesh thing. And so what happens is you still see it sometimes in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, where people will say things to me, but they have to say Mike and Jenny and like throw her in there too. And they have a hard time separating us. Which is funny, because like when my wife goes and does things in the world by herself, like, nobody in the world gives me credit for what she's doing. Or for supporting her or something. But it's this holdover from like Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, you were to become one flesh and you had to like agree on everything. You were basically people. If you served in some capacity as a brother in the congregation, they had to make sure to thank your wife for supporting you. There's like these certain ways of seeing people that you still see, at times in the X community as well. And it's just this holdover. Jehovah's Witnesses don't allow you to be individuals in a relationship. You're just supposed to be the same, and you're just supposed to be Jehovah's Witnesses. So it's way better once you leave.
You'll even see that translate, like, most witnesses have the shared Facebook account, like so-and-so and so-and-so with their last name. And I'm like, you guys can't even be individuals online. Like, it's anonymous. No one cares. You could be yourself, but no, they got to be together because they're one flesh with Jehovah. That's crazy.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? And so you see it a lot. And again, that's just another thing that sets marriages up to fail, because you're not always going to agree on anything. And honestly, if you agree on everything, then one of you is unnecessary.
You're just dating yourself then. Like, just go masturbate at that point.
Well, what's the point of it?
Exactly. Like, I want some some like, yeah, conversation. And that was hard the first few years, was trying, like, we were kids, man, you know, and just trying to survive, trying to figure out what we liked, who we are. I was blamed a lot for our spiritual downfall. You know, it was fingers pointed at me. I'm supposed to be studying, I'm supposed to be taking the lead. But you know, she didn't know how to follow the lead from someone not her dad. So there's just fighting every step of the way. Like, these are something neither of us wanted to do, but neither of us were being honest about. You know, we don't want to go to meetings, we don't want to study. So we're just arguing and fight and bicker about it instead. But at the end of the day, you know, this is a person who I loved, I cared about, and forever will. And she was there for me for you know, most of those years, just as support without question. And you know, that's a little unhealthy, that we just look towards each other for comfort instead of being comfortable and bringing the best. We depended on each other for that comfort, and that was unhealthy. And that was just a lot of years, but I mean, it got us through those years, man, where we literally just had each other.
Absolutely. There's a lot of codependent relationships
Mm-hmm.
that come out of the cult, because you're not two independent individuals making a choice to come together.
Right.
It's two people who basically share a belief system coming together and then relying on each other for everything, because you're
Yeah.
so isolated even in the congregation. So for you to, so what was the trajectory that I guess led to you eventually leaving the Witnesses?
So I got married at 18. Up until about 24, I was as active as I could be. Around 22 is when things changed, though, because I got an actual job. Now, I was doing the witness thing and delivering pizzas, working 3 jobs to make ends meet, trying to pioneer, busting balls every day, exhausted every night. My wife had emergency dental surgery, and I remember we had like 5K worth of bills out of nowhere, and we don't got no money. We're broke. Like, she cleans hotel rooms, I deliver pizza. Where are we going to get 5,000 from? So between the two of us, we worked like 4, 5, 6 jobs to pay that off fast. But like, I finally got a good job. I got my GED. I went and took a vocational welding course at a local community college, and I got a really good welding job, a career, you know.
Yeah, that's legit.
Yeah, it was. But with that came the off shift. And so I never worked off shift. I never worked that many hours, you know, 65, 70 hours in one spot. I never missed meetings like that. I never missed service like that. And so it was killing me, man, because like, I'm like, I know I'm dying already. This is my one chance to get everlasting life. Like, I'm fucking that up too. So like, I remember being begging, like talking to the elders, my 2 favorite ones, and crying. I'm like, where's my faith? I hear these stories of brothers quitting their jobs because they're interfering. And I was like, why can't I do that? Like, I don't have the faith to do. I would be begging them, like, give it to me. Share me the scripture. Help me. And Remy would be like, Ramo, it's not like that. You know, you got to show Jehovah you have the faith, and then the blessings will come. Like, as long as you're showing him, you're fine. But it wasn't enough for me. It still hurt. And so like, I'm missing meetings, I'm working all this time, lifestyle creeps getting me, and it's just nothing good comes of a good job either. That, you know, the organization just kills another good thing.
Oh
So
yeah.
like the endorphins I got from getting that job were quickly depleted, and I was depressed and an alcoholic again. And so
Oh, was that you said alcoholic again? Was that something that crept in
yeah,
to help you
so
cope?
I come from a long line of degenerates, a lot of murderers, drug dealers, addicts, all that stuff, and drunks. Um, my one uncle for years used to drink a fifth of vodka every day at lunch at work. In his half-hour lunch, he'd slam a fifth. For years, that's what he did, and it wasn't like the good fits; it was like the plastic bottle fits, like that nasty stuff.
Well, it's probably cheaper and had to, take
Yeah,
the
you know, it
plunge.
gets the job done. But like growing up, I would always sneak alcohol. My dad drank heavily. We always had those Franzia boxes of wine in the fridge, and he had a big Bears cup that was like this big, like several liters that he would fill up. Like, he'd go through those Franzia wine boxes so fast, man. And so would I. They were going quick because I was sipping on those too all the time. And so I kind of got away from that. The last I got reproved, I kind of stopped all that, stopped drinking for a while. And then getting sad and everything in my marriage, a few years into my marriage, get the job, doesn't do nothing. It just makes things worse on the surface as a witness, started drinking again. At the worst, I was going through like a few bottles of Jameson a week. And then I've always prided myself in having self-control. I started noticing I was getting mad when I didn't have a glass of whiskey after work, like a big glass of whiskey. And I remember an elder, oddly enough, telling me, Ramo, when I turned 21, he's like, Ramo, don't drink to be happy. Drink when you are happy. And that shit just started ringing in my head. And I was like, man, Roy was right. And I stopped drinking for a good while after that again. So I was heavy drinking from like 24 to 26, like a couple years. I was big at it again. And nothing was going good. We moved to closer to my job. We weren't happy. 2 new cars, a dope ass apartment, living outside of our means because no one taught us financial nothing beneficial. So up until like 26, so like 24, I start getting really inactive. My wife and I, we start missing meetings a lot, missing service. We'll go out like once a month, but the meetings it changed. Like I stopped going for Jehovah. I started going just because it was a gas. Like I'd laugh my ass off. They were hilarious. Like my mindset started changing to where I started realizing how crazy we sounded. Like all the crazy shit I've been saying actually started sounding crazy to me. And like they're saying all these things from the platform, and I'm like, man, that doesn't make sense. Like that sounds really weird. And it's so bizarre. Like me and my wife would just laugh our asses off. Like we didn't give a shit anymore. We would be in the hall just laughing our asses off. Like friends would be looking at us, and then like I remember other brothers, like elders' wives, be like, "Oh, you guys just love the meetings, don't you? Like you guys always look like you're having a great time." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm having a blast here. Like this is mind blowing. Like, are you paying attention? Like you hear this?" And so we got inactive, and then I had a stroke actually when I was 26.
Wow.
And I had several specialists tell me I should have died, and that put me on the couch for about 9 months. And so that was no meetings, no service. The liaison committee contacted me once. And we're like, hey, we heard you were in the hospital and stuff. And I was like, yeah, that was a couple weeks ago. And they're like, oh, what happened? Like, why didn't you put us down? Immediately started pointing out what I did wrong. And I'm like, no, I put you guys down. You should have been contacted, but I'm not going to go out of my way to reach you. And he's like, oh, well, we're sorry to hear about what happened. And I'll call you tomorrow to check in on you. And I was like, okay, Ramon, yeah, call me. Never got that phone call. So the hospital liaison committee, they do a great job.
Oh yeah, they're just there to control people and to bully them to make sure that they don't take blood.
Yeah, that's it. I thought they were there to show some concern or some support, but nope, fuck me. So like after that, man, I was out. And so being that far away, having that space from that, it really just gives you some time and some perspective. And during that time, though, I was still hanging out with witnesses. I was still associating with all my friends, and just trying to do my best. Like I was off work. I was really sad. I got really fat. I got up to like 300 pounds. And I was just, nothing was working. I wasn't happy with anything, man. And then I took some acid. And that woke me up, dude. That just destroyed everything for me, and that changed
Really?
everything.
What was
Yeah.
it about the acid that destroyed it all for you?
Okay, so I'm like, I get my wife on the same page with me. I'm like, look, I've been doing a bunch of research. There's nothing dangerous. No, all the basics that people tell their friends to do drugs with them. And so she's down. So we haven't been to meetings in forever. We're gonna do this drug together. And man, when it hit, dude, I just started thinking about who I was. And then it hit me how hypocritical I was. I was like, man, I've been talking about agape love, brotherly love. I was like, I shun people. I was like, man, we preach love. I was like, but we don't help no one. We don't do charity. And like all these thoughts that you're not supposed to have that you always shut down, on acid, you can't control them, bro. Like they're just going. Like you gotta follow them through and you gotta see them through the end. And I landed on I was wrong. And I landed on love is important. And I landed on I wasn't showing love. I was false. I was fake. And I couldn't live with that no more. And so after that, man, nothing was the same. Meetings, I started going back and trying. I couldn't go back to meetings. Like nothing they said was right. The way they treated each other wasn't right. I'm still associating with people. So like I'm going out on weekends with brothers and sisters. We're getting fucked up. Everyone's alcoholics. You know, we smoke, we drink. But come Sunday, I'm the only one taking the fall for it. They're all telling on me because they're all still active. But I'm the one, you know, that's inactive. I'm on the couch convalescing, so I could take the fall. Let's point the finger at Ramo. You know, I've been out on weekends and brothers have gotten DUIs on their boats, but I'm the elders only hear about me hitting a hitter for the whole weekend. Like no one hears about anything else but that. And guess what? I didn't even smoke weed that weekend. So like I don't even know what they're talking about. I got elders. I'm like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Let me see your witnesses. Like let's talk about it. Oh, you don't got none? Okay, then fuck off. And so like it turned into that. It turned into me realizing that these people. I also continued to do acid a lot after that. And each time I take it, I'm realizing that these people are not real. Like me, Ramo, whoever that is, has been a real person. I care about these people and I will do anything for them. But because I'm not going to a meeting, I'm not recording 10 hours of service, I'm not conforming to these 8 men that run a publishing company, I'm bad. And so I was like 6 hours into like a 700 UG trip. And one of my best friends, I love this sister to death still. I doubt I'm a second thought in her head these days. But she was one of my closest friends, my wife and I's closest friends. Her and her husband were like our best friends. We loved them. She starts texting me about how much of a spiritual danger I am to her and her family. And how her dad, who's an elder, told her like I should not be associated with. I'm bad association. And she's just letting me know that I need some space and she's doing this for me. And to this day, that was the worst trip I ever had. I instantly bawled. I just collapsed to the floor and it just shattered my universe, realizing that my friends were not my friends. And like that realization, it just opened up the floodgates, man. Like I couldn't do it anymore. And then it moved me to like Google for the first time, Jehovah's Witnesses. So here I am, 28 now, Googling Jehovah's Witnesses, man, for the very first time. And my hands are shaking as I'm typing it in, you know what I'm saying? And I come across like all that shit. Like, first of all, like when I Googled, I think I did it into YouTube first. Actually, I remember what did it. So I was watching, do you remember Talk Soup?
Oh, yeah, that old TV show.
Yeah, so Joe McHale took over it when it died. Yeah, and then he came back on Netflix and did it kind of like the same format for a season. In one of the episodes, he goes, so I'm having these epiphanies, right? The truth isn't the truth to me. I'm having all this inner struggle and don't know what to do or don't know where to go or what to look at or what to do again. And he has an episode and he brings up this really quick clip. He's like, things at the Jehovah Witness headquarters get a little questionable sometimes. He's like, and some people might be looking for places to get a little more romantic that some might not think about. He says like this weird elaborate joke. And it's a clip from the Bethel, when you go to Bethel and they start warning you about like humping pillows, Pillowgate.
Pillowgate, yeah.
The Pillowgate video. And so that shit was hilarious. Like, you know, like me growing up, I always loved the crazy shit we said. So I was like, man, I gotta find that video. I want to watch it. I want to show my wife. We're going to have a ball laughing our asses off at it. So I go to YouTube to try to find it. So what do I search? Jehovah's Witness masturbation video, Jehovah's Witness Bethel video. And of course I pull up that stuff and man, dude, the results. And I see all these apostates, bro. I'm like, man, fuck these apostates in my head because I'm physically out, mentally in. I'm like, man, screw all these people just hating on my organization. But then I start reading and I'm scared to even read the titles, man. And then I start reading them and they're like, how I escaped, how I survived, my survival story, tips for leaving the organization. I'm like, what? Like, why are all these, what? Like, that don't sound evil. And so I clicked on one, man. And it was like, of course, like John Cedars interviewing some poor little girl who was molested. And it was a more public case. And I'm like, what? Like, no, like that, no. And sure enough, come across the Australian Royal Commission. And as soon as Loesch answered, that would be presumptuous of me or whatever. When they're like, are you God's only channel for spiritual food? And he's like, that'd be presumptuous of me. I was like, and I rewound it and I listened to it again. That'd be presumptuous of me. I rewound it. And I was like, man, I used to go out in service and say crazier shit than yes, which is what he should have answered that question as. I used to say crazier shit than just yes. Like, if you're truly the leader and God's only source of light, that's an affirmative yes. How many times have they told us to say that? When we get baptized, give us an affirmative yes. That motherfucker said, that'd be presumptuous of me. And I'm like, no. And so my wife gets home from work and I'm like, Sarah, you gotta watch this. Like, I'm sorry, I'm showing you apostate stuff. I was like, but this is the thing. I was like, this is a legit organization. This is legit things. This is a legit court case. That's legit the governing body, dude. I was like, I wouldn't come up to you, Sarah, if this was fake. I was like, this is not Satan. I've read the court documents. I just consumed it one day at work. I was working thirds and I didn't do a damn thing like that whole week at work. I was just listening and reading all that. And she was like, okay. And I was like, I'm not going to watch it with you. Just go, when you get some time, watch this. So like a couple weeks goes by. I'm done, man. Like I can't, I can't be a witness no more. I'm disgusted. I'm ashamed. I can't believe the things that they hide and how blatantly evil they are about it. Like, to be fined all that money and to be subpoenaed and not give a shit about your organization or the millions of people that are supposed to be your brothers and sisters, like that shit hurt so bad to know that that's what I was a part of. And that just made me feel so gross. But then my wife's like, okay, we got to talk. And I'm like, all right, let's talk. So I had like the organizational policies, the pedophile stuff, all that was what woke me up. She comes with a list of shit. She's like, Noah, fake. 607 BCE, bullshit. She just went with all the doctrine stuff because she never really gave a shit about the organization. She was a sister who just like coasted, auxiliary pioneered here and there, got baptized as a teen, didn't really care. But she started studying what we believe and what actual truth is. And she just came with all that at me. And I'm like, holy shit, Sarah. Like, this is all bullshit. Like, not only are we wrong for these practices, which is enough for me to be done with it, I was like, but literally everything is a lie now. I was like, I don't know about you, Sarah. I was like, but I don't think it's the truth no more. And it was terrifying, but she agreed. And that was the most comforting I've ever felt, to know that I'm not crazy. Like, I felt crazy all these years. And I was terrified for her to know how I felt for the first time, because we didn't communicate our whole marriage. We didn't talk. We didn't work things out. We were witnesses. We just had faith and prayed. And to get to that point and for her to validate everything and to agree with me, like, you're 28 and your whole world's shattered off of some drugs that you did. And you don't even know if you're going crazy. But for her to say, nah, man, like, you're right. It's bullshit, Ramo. Like, you're right. Like, and she said it. She's like, I'm done. She's like, they're not the truth. She's like, that's a publishing company, man. She's like, I'm done with it. And I was like, yeah, man, it is. I was like, I'm done too. And then that's how we got out, man. I was, from that day, I deleted everyone on my socials that were witnesses. I deleted every phone number that was a witness. I told a handful of friends about it. Like, I don't know. I guess a lot of ex-witnesses go into that like vigilante phase right when they get out, where I got to save everyone. We gotta fight the power and bring everyone with us. And so I had like a few of my closest friends that I wanted to tell. That didn't go so well, any of those.
No, it almost never does.
It doesn't. The worst of them was my brother-in-law, my oldest brother-in-law. He showed up at my house after one conversation with my wife. Like, we kind of took a step back from our relationships to kind of figure out what we were going to do. He reached out to her to finally ask, hey, what the hell's going on? Like, what are you guys doing? What's wrong? Of course, because something's wrong. And she told him, I don't believe it's the truth. You know, I don't believe they're God's source for mankind. Like, I'm done. So his reaction was to come get me because I'm the head of the household. So I wake up, I'm working thirds. I wake up to him banging on my door. He breaks in. He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing missing meetings? He's like attacking me, man. Like, you're responsible for Sarah. She's going to die because of you. You guys want to die at Army? Like, and this is a dude that I've known to not even give a shit about the organization really, but he's fired up. He is righteously indignant right now. And I told him, I was like, look, Joe, I don't want to have this conversation. It's still very fresh to me. I'm still processing. I was like, and on top of that, you're literally not going to want to hear anything I have to say. I was like, you're not going to believe it. I was like, I'm going to be the bad guy after this conversation. And I was turning him away. I was doing a good job until he accused me of not loving my wife. And I was like, how are you going to stand there? I was like, I have been married to your sister for damn near a decade. I have done nothing but provided for her. How dare you accuse me of not loving my wife? I was like, she wants to be in the organization, man. Go get her. Go tell her it's right. And I showed him the scriptures. I showed him the awake from 06, no one should be forced to worship in a way that makes them uncomfortable or have to choose between their family. I showed him that awake. I was like, explain that to me then. And he had nothing. And I brought up like, boom, governing bodies bullshit, 6 to 7. I brought up all this stuff. I had scriptures because I was fresh in it. I pulled up the Reddit posts. I was like, oh man, I got scriptures. I was like, look at these historical things. And I could just see his eyes glazing over, just nothing. And then I remember once he's like, what about this? He's like, what about this? The Bible. And I was like, okay, Joe. I was like, show me one verse in there that shows that you're right. And he started flipping through it. And I was hoping he would. And then he just closed it and just went back to, I'm being a terrible person for killing my wife. And that was like one of the last real hardcore like debates I had. I told a couple other friends when we went drinking, all my drinking witness buddies, we were out getting fucked up, bar hopping, and I told them like, hey man, I gotta tell you guys, like, I'm not gonna go to any more meetings. Like, I'm never gonna go out and serve. I just need you to know I'm bad association now. Like, I'm officially accepting that you guys shouldn't be around me. And one of my friends, he's like, why? And I was like, I don't owe you an explanation. And he's like, you better explain to me right now. Like, we were already kind of tipsy, but emotions took over. And I have these two grown-ass men screaming at me, why aren't you going to go to the meetings no more? Why don't you believe it's the truth? In a bar, like a full-ass bar. And I told him, like, I broke down a few things. And the one that was doing the most screaming, he had just recently got reinstated, maybe like a year before that. And I was like, Josh, I can't do it no more because I shunned you. I was like, dude, I moved out here. I didn't know nothing about you, but I ignored you, bro. I saw you walking towards me. I would turn my back to you. I was like, and that's disgusting. I'm never doing that again. I was like, dig this, because he had just had a kid, so that's why he got reinstated. So he could have his family in his life. His dad was an elder. I was like, dig this, Josh. What if your boy fucks up? You gonna shun him? I was like, or what if you fuck up again and your little kids gotta just ignore you, bro? You know the elders are gonna be in his ear telling him not to fuck with you like that. And he's like, yeah, you're right. I was like, that's okay with you, man? I was like, because I can't do that to any kid. I was like, yo, I got baptized when I was 18. What if I messed up? I was like, they're gonna hold me to that. And I can't do that. That's not real. That's not love. That's not in the Bible. I was like, that's an organizational policy, bro. And that ain't me no more. I was like, but you could have it. And they were just really upset about that. Like, all of my friends that I told, they were really mad at me about it. And I haven't spoken to any of them since, man. It's been crazy. That was like a couple years ago.
That's tough. I mean, it highlights a few points. You know, you can't wake up somebody that's asleep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, even physically, Actually, the other day, I don't know, the alarm went off, man. I was not ready to get up. And I felt like I was sleepwalking all day. Like my brain just could not get quite as engaged as I wanted it to be. But just in the same way, you can tell people, you can show people everything, but if they're asleep and their eyes aren't open and they're not ready to see it, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
It's a helpless feeling. Um, I also have to say, your brother-in-law saying that about like basically how Sarah is going to be killed at Armageddon, and of course it's your fault.
Yeah.
So much. It's not so much of what Jehovah's Witnesses do, honestly, is about saving their own ass.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid to die. They're afraid that their God's going to murder them. So they must stay on the straight and narrow so that doesn't happen. And it's just, it's survival. And for them, it's not about some magic love for Jehovah or whatever. They're afraid of him. They're afraid of what he's going to do to people.
Yeah.
And so because of that, it's just as if somehow, like, there are people who are like, well, just stay a witness, man, and save your life, basically. It's like, oh, so you think I can trick God?
Yeah. He would know. He knows my heart. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I can fool him then, and I should try to fool him. It's just really unfortunate because all of these people that mattered to you suddenly they can't be there for you anymore. And honestly, what has happened is you've outgrown them. For most of us, we outgrew those people, and they can't come where we go because they're stuck. They are stuck in an emotionally and mentally stunted position in life, and they can't grow past it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really sad. So for yourself, you wake up, your friends are starting to, turn their back on you because, they can't follow you where you're about to go. So how did you eventually then leave?
After that, I tried to keep some ties. Like, I would check in on some of my really close friends that don't care about me anymore. Actually, I said I haven't talked to them since. Texted a couple, but one of them did reach out. One of them, to this day, he's a witness. He celebrated my birthday with me this past year. And I'm sure he was feeling shitty about it Sunday at the meeting, but he's so like physically out, mentally in though. The couple of times we've actually hung out and drank, he'll bring up the witness stuff. He's like, man, so what about this? Like, what about 607 again? And I'm like, yo, we don't have to talk about this. Like, we're having a good time. Let's keep having a good time. But no, he'll bring it back to the witnesses. He's like, no, real quick, let's talk about this real quick. But like you're saying, they're stuck, and that's awesome. Thank you for that. That's great perspective. Yeah. So like, just to get free, man, I just didn't turn back. My last meeting was a convention like 3 years ago. And conventions they were always great for me growing up because you could really see the scale of the organization then. You really see the brotherhood. I remember growing up feeling like shit, like always being ashamed because I was doing bad stuff, whatever I was doing on my own. So I'd always feel ashamed during meetings. If I commented, I'd get real heat. People thought I was like so cute all the time because I get embarrassed and stuff. But it's because I knew Jehovah knew I was a shitty person, but I was still trying. And then conventions like towards the end of my marriage were just stressful, dude. Like, it was just instead of a spiritual paradise of a weekend, it was just a 72-hour argument. And it was just fingers pointing of why, like me pointing at her, why she's not a good wife, her pointing at me, why I'm not a good head, and then us pointing at each other, why the fuck are we even doing this? And so I remember the last convention, it was like Sunday morning, and I was like, yo, I'm ready. Let's go. And she was like, what? I was like, why are we here? Like, we're literally just going to argue the whole way home after this. Why do we even come to these anymore? I was like, I don't care. But it was the convention and the memorial. We had been doing that the years previous, like up to that. We'd been inactive, but memorials, conventions, assemblies, you make. And that was the last one. I don't even remember what the theme was, but that was just the last meeting, and we never went back. I went to one memorial after that. That was her last meeting. I went to one memorial, and that was weird. Like, just sitting there so removed and seeing like how culty and ritualistic it is. Like when all the dudes stand up and go get the emblems, I was like, ugh, like this is what I was doing? Like, this is gross.
My favorite was always when the brothers have been passing the emblems down the rows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it gets to the end of the row and it's passed to them, and then they go to the next row and they do all that. And then at the end of the memorial, they like put all their stuff back up on the table and they go sit like in the front row. And then the speaker comes and like passes it to them. It's like, those brothers have had that passed to them like 90 times by now, going up and down the rows. Yeah. Why do we have to make it? You can see how ritualistic it is. Why do we now you have to make a big show out of passing it to them again?
Did you ever have like when they would pass it to the speaker? So like some congregations wouldn't have the speaker come down and serve the emblem passers. One brother would go up to the speaker and do like this weird awkward hold and pass back to the same brother for the speaker.
I have seen that.
That was even worse, man. Like, why do you need to do that?
It's also ridiculous.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, that stuff. So like just opening my eyes to that and like being so far removed the couple of times I went back after that, I was done. Like it was just so gross. I can't not think about the list of fucking pedophiles that they're hiding. Whenever I see a Kingdom Hall or hear a witness name, that's like in my head immediately. I'm like, okay, it's a gross organization. Like I don't want to hear nothing else. But that was how I got out, man. Just waking up and running and never looking back. I was done.
And so did you fade? Did you formally disassociate? Did you put a pin in it? Or are you just kind of like soft shunned or whatever because you're not going anymore?
I faded. So I was already pretty inactive. But like I've always been a brother that everyone gets along with. Like, you know, I loved the organization because that was my form of comfort and positivity. And so like anytime I was around people, it was a thing. Like, you know, we're gonna have a good time. Oh, Ramos here, it's gonna be a good time now. And like that's just kind of the personality I have. You know, that Apostle Paul tactics, man, getting that common ground with everyone. And so I was really good at that. So like it was always noticeable when I would not be there, which sucked. Like people be like, "Oh, where's Ramo?" You know, I didn't have a good time before the meeting, laughing or something. And so like I just stopped, just completely stopped. I was about to put my disassociate letter in to disassociate, but I realized that I get why people do that. Mm-hmm. Me personally, I would never talk someone out of it. Like that's up to you. We all do our own way. We all handle getting out our own way. I just faded, and I'm actually hard shunned by people. People blocked me. I see people, witnesses at stores, they were literally turn around and go the other way. I went to a funeral of one of my friends who's like a physically out, mentally in witness. His dad died. And so there was a lot of witnesses there. And I can't tell you how many of them treated me like I was disfellowship. Like I was like, hey, like I saw this one brother from Peoria. I was like, what's up, Chase? And he went, just like that. Stuck his nose up at me. I was like, man, I thought they only did that in cartoons. Like that's a real thing. And it was just gross. Like that whole day was gross. How they treated the man that died. There was an elder that went up to give this talk, the eulogy, and it was all, you know, the spiel for witnesses. All he told us about the guy was he had issues with drugs and he worked at Target. That was all he shared about the man's life.
That's horrible.
And I went up, and so I was like, are you serious? And so one of the friends of the family, it wasn't his dad, it was his brother. So his brother died. His dad actually goes up after, who's not a witness, and he wasn't planned to speak. He went up and talked about his son's life because it wasn't right what that man did. And I told him afterwards, I was like, hey, thank you for sharing some things with us. I was like, I didn't know Nate like that. Thank you for telling me what he was like. And he almost started crying. He gave me like the biggest hug, and I never met him before. He had heard about me through his son because we were friends. But he gave me the biggest hug, and you could tell no one else thanked him for that. No one else cared. You know, as long as you got the message across that there's going to be a resurrection, we're good.
Yeah.
But that was terrible. And just to see how witnesses handle everything nowadays, like I'm so glad I'm removed from it because it's gross, man. And to see how they treat me, and I literally nothing to them. So that's crazy.
So, are you today? You mentioned being, even hard shunned by people. What about your family?
I shunned my parents, actually. I am an active, so I had one last visit with them when I woke up, and it didn't go so well. It ended, I stayed calm, but it ended with my father kicking me out of the house. I called him out on everything and asked questions, and he couldn't answer. So, like, I mentioned that my dad's always been a terrifying guy to me. Like, he was in prison for like over a decade, came out with giant muscles. Like there's pictures of him balancing glasses of water on his chest. That's how big of a guy he was. And he's always been that in my head. And when he gets angry, he turns into like the ugliest person. And I look just like him. So if you want, so there's a taste of it. Like it's that ugly. But like when I was there, like the whole conversation was crazy. I could see just how gross they were. Like it started and they're like, how's school going? Because I started college actually. I'm in college.
Oh,
Um,
congratulations!
Thank you. Thank you. I actually got a 4.0 one semester, and it's like the favorite thing. I made the deans and presidents list. It was awesome.
Heck yeah, Ramo, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
proud of
great.
that.
Sure.
So they asked me, how's school going? My parents, who kept me out of school. That's how they want to start the conversation. My mom's like, so how's school going, mijo? And I was like, you don't care. And she's like, oh, why would you say that? Like joking, like, don't say that. And I was like, what are you talking about, Ma? You kept me from school. Like I was there basically to say goodbye to them. I didn't want to get into an argument. I didn't want to get into a confrontation. I was there saying goodbye. But they started pushing buttons, man, and I got it from them to be a hothead. So they're like, how's school? So that irked me a bit. I was like, ah. I was like, look, you guys don't care how school is. You got any other questions? And I was like walking out the door. And so my dad goes, yeah, how's your Bible reading? And I was like, ooh, I was like, you know what, Dad, my Bible reading is actually really good right now. I was like, I'm reading the Bible for like, it feels like the first time. And he's like, oh yeah, you got any good stuff? And I was like, I do actually. I was like, Judges, why couldn't Jehovah drive out the chariots? And he's like, what? And it was the first time my anointed father didn't have an answer from the Bible for me. The first time in 28 years that he didn't have an answer from the Bible. And it was the first time in 28 years of my living that he looked like an old human to me. Like in an instant, bro, my view of him was gone and he just turned into the little old dude that was in front of me. And then my mom comes, what scripture? What did you ask? And I was like, Judges. It's like, I forgot what chapter. It's super early in Judges. And it says, he tried to drive out the chariots, but was unwilling to because they had iron on them. And I was like, so what's up with Yahweh right here, Dad? I was like, he causes to become. He could do anything. Why couldn't he do that? And he admitted, he's like, I don't know, son. He's like, I'm going to have to look into that. He's like, I'll get back to you. The witness answer. And I was like, okay. I was like, but that's where my Bible reading's at. I was like, what about yours? And he's like, I was like, actually, I come across a couple other scriptures too. And so I brought up their scripture, Proverbs, about the light getting brighter. I was like, so let's talk about this, Dad. I was like, so what's the opposite of truth? And he's like, lies. I was like, what's the opposite of light? He said, darkness. I was like, so they have nothing to do with each other, right? And he's like, no, they can't. I was like, all right, so dig this. I was like, you've been in the truth your whole life, or my whole life. I was like, since you came in, I was like, when has it ever been the truth? I was like, all the times they predicted the end never happened. I was like, this idea of the generation, I was like, you yourself have always told me people who were alive that saw 1914, they're going to be alive to see the end. I was like, you believe that generation. I was like, your organization doesn't now. I was like, so where are you? And he goes, oh, that's just the organization, how they are. I was like, wait, Dad, wait. I was like, so you judge your kids and me for not being active in this religion. because it's the truth. I was like, but you yourself admit you don't believe things they teach. I was like, so how is that? And he started getting mad. And I was like, look, you cannot claim to be the truth or absolute truth if you've literally never been truth.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, if the light's getting brighter, that means it was in the dark. I was like, if there's darkness, that means there's lies around it. And when it's firmly established, it's truth. I was like, that makes no sense, Dad. I was like, read that scripture, read around it, take in the context. And I kept repeating it. I was like, if you've been in the darkness this entire time, you have no claim to truth and light. And he started getting mad. He's like, you said that already. Why do you keep repeating that? And it's because I did it because I was doing research on cognitive dissonance and stuff. And I just wanted one thing to stick with him. And I was like, if I keep repeating this and maybe I could break through, maybe it'll make some sense because I just keep saying it. And the rest of the conversation, I pretty much kept saying that. And I told my mom, I was like, I turned to her because she was quiet, you know, the witness wife. She put her head down and sat in the couch and let my dad try to argue. And I was like, no, let's get back here, Mom. I was like, how is it that you see fit to judge your kids when you let this man come into your life and tear your family apart with a false religion? I was like, when has your religion ever been truth? I was, show me right now. Show me. When? In the future? I was like, because we don't know the future. That's not truth. I was like, right now, up till this point in time, I was like, this very second, Mother, when have you been the truth? And she's like, oh, that's just your view of it. I was like, well, then tell me your view. Show me where this truth is. I was like, if this evil man came into our life and destroyed our family, and you sat there and did nothing all these years, I was like, you guys disgust me. And my dad's like, so, man, up until then, you asked about my family. So when I opened my eyes and when I woke up, I hate the term, but it applies. I reached out to my siblings. That was the first thing I did. I called my brothers and sisters and I was just apologizing. Like, man, I fucked up. I missed all your kids' lives. I missed all the parties. I missed all this family. And I was just begging them, like, just please forgive me. I am so sorry for being stupid. Like, I thought I was right, but I was wrong. And the cool thing was they all accepted me lovingly. Like, my brother's like, man, I always knew. He's like, we've been waiting here for you, man. He's like, you know, you were in it, and every time you'd come around, you'd be about the Jehovah and shit. He's like, we couldn't say nothing. He's like, but that's cool. He's like, you're here now. And even my sister-in-law, who we have a shaky relationship over the years, I don't really care for her, but I do a lot more now because when I apologized to her and apologized for not being her in her kid's life, she's all she said was, she's like, you're here now. She said, be here now. And instantly our relationship was better. So included with reaching out to my siblings, I had to reach out to my oldest sister, who is disfellowshipped my whole life. I don't know her at all. Never really spoke to her besides like at funerals. I'd say hi and feel bad for hurting Jehovah for talking to my disfellowshipped family. I never knew why she was disfellowshipped. I never knew, you know, anything about her. So I reach out to her. I'm like, hey, this is going on. You know, I realized I'm wrong. I would like to be a part of your life. I'd like to meet. I'd like to have, you know, dinner, or can we please? And she was so shocked to hear from me. She's like, Ramo, like when I heard the voicemail, she's like, Ramo. She's like, wait, my brother's name is Ramo. Because I had never called her, you know?
Yeah, hard to remember. And how
Yeah.
many years are between you?
She's the oldest, so she's like 50 plus, and I'm 28 at the time. So she's almost double me, and I don't know her at all. And she's like, I was so excited to get this phone call. And so we planned dinner for right after that, like that weekend. So I get there, it's cool. I hug my sister for the first time in my life, and just I have a sister, and it's amazing. And so we sit down and I'm like, man, I want to know you. Like I had a list of questions. I was like, what were the 80s like? You know, what was Prince like? You know, what did you do? And she goes, all right, Ramo, like you want to know me. There's some things we got to get out the way first. And I was like, okay. She goes, first off the bat, I was disfellowshipped. And I was like, yeah, I know. She's like, do you know why? I was like, no. She goes, well, just so you know, I lied to the elders. to get disfellowshipped. And I was like, what do you mean? Like I had heard all these weird stories, and I would never imagine it was this close to home. So I was like, what do you mean you lied to the elders? So it turns out after my dad got out of prison, he was abusing my sister. And like to already hate my parents for what they did to me, and resent them for all the things that they held back from me, to know that they hurt someone else like that. Like, I thought my life was gross, and I thought my existence was trivial and didn't matter. And I know what they did to me and how much that hurt. But for her to survive that and to be as great as she is, I broke down. Like, we were in the middle of this big restaurant, and I am just bawling my eyes out. The chicken Marcella was delicious, and I'm like, the waitress is coming, and I am a mess, man. I'm dying learning all this about my family. So she went to the elders to report it. They told her not to go to the police and not to do it. They did nothing about it. So she lied and told them that she was actually having an affair, having sex with a kid at school. And they just, to get out of the house, because she knew if she got this fellowship or in trouble, her family would have to disown her. So she lied about that to get this fellowship so my family would kick her out of the house just so she could get away from my father.
Wow.
And to find that out, all these years, them feeding me that she's disfellowshipped and evil, and to find out she played the system to save herself, that literally, like, if I wasn't done already with it, that would have did it. Because I was like, yo, fuck all of that. Because that's crazy. And we cried pretty much that whole dinner and hugged for who knows how long after. And everyone was awkward and looking at us in the restaurant and stuff. But I don't give a shit. It was one of the best dinners I've ever had. And just, even though how sad it got at some points, I was happy to actually have a family, man. And I'm thankful that they still accept me. I'm working on my relationships. I'm the youngest, so they're all older than me. I'm working on those relationships. My little niece, my brother, just his youngest, just had her 3rd birthday party, and I was there, man. It was awesome, and it was funny because I talked to my sister-in-law. I was like, "Hey, how's it going? How's your day? Like, stressful?" And she's like, "No, this is just a 3-year-old birthday party." And it hit me. I was like, wait, that's right. Like, you guys do this all the time. Like, I have no idea how to throw a birthday party for a 3-year-old. Like, this would be crazy to me if I had to do this right now. Yeah. But she's, 4 kids in. She don't give a shit about it. Like, it's her kid's special day, but this is normal. This is natural to her. And it was just such a beautiful day, man. Like, it was great. So I'm working on my relationships with my siblings, my parents. Literally, the only thing I would have to do with them is if, like, they wanted to smoke a blunt or something, I would more than happy spark one with them. But other than that, like, I don't want anything to do with them.
So, so you're getting your family back in your life, your siblings.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. I mean, that's love. When you can come to them and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I shunned you. Or had nothing to do with you," or whatever the case, "I was wrong," and they just accept you back like it was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's a lot of missed time there, and you can't just, it is awkward in stages. But that's love. What your parents do, that's control. That's not love.
Yeah.
And all of us who are Jehovah's Witnesses at some point probably had to shun somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I shunned my brother. And when you look back, we did it because it was all we knew. You were baptized at 8 years old. What chance did you have, to not grow up?
Right.
Obviously your parents really had a hand in your mental and emotional state and your feelings toward whether it was the religion or the people outside of it. You were obviously all in being baptized at 8. And so, it's beautiful that they can forgive you. Hope you find that forgiveness for yourself as well.
Yeah.
And, now, so you're working on these relationships. what do you enjoy about your life since leaving? What's changed, and what do you want out of your new life?
Whew. It took me a little bit. So like as soon as I learned about what I was a part of, instantly went to therapy. I went to my doctor and I was like, look, I just realized I was born and raised in a cult. Just now accepting I don't know anything. Like I don't know how to like how I'm floating, how I'm surviving financially. I don't know what I'm doing this. I don't know. I have no education. So therapy was the first step, man. Had to work through that mental shit, big time. And I've been at it for 2 years now. One of the best things I've learned from that, a big thing for me is feeling behind. You mentioned it really early in our conversation. You know, I feel behind so much, like a lot of us do. And I expressed that, and my therapist, she always says, how old were you when you got out? And I'm like 24. She's like, all right, so be thankful if by 48 you don't have those issues. She's like, because that was your whole life up until then. She's like, so, you know, look at the progress we've done in the past couple of years and then hope that we don't have to go to 48. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So therapy was one. I started doing all the hobbies that I never could. Like I crochet. I got into kayaking. Dislocated my shoulder, mountain biking, like trying that out. Just living, man, doing things without feeling guilty. I'm not out in service or I'm not preaching to somebody that I'm standing next to. School. I feel really uneducated all the time. And it's a bummer. Like that's in the back of my head all the time. But I started college, man, just on a business degree, just to see where I could go. And I'm doing it super part-time because I still have that job. I still work a lot. But I just go to school part-time, dude. And it's great. Like business class, killed it. Math, I'm in the beginning, but I'm not the only one there. Like there's other people there. And it's crazy. Like, I'm so ashamed to ask for help or raise my hand for asking questions, but I see like these people older than me there asking for questions that I know the answer to, and I'm like, man, fuck that. Like, I don't need to be ashamed. Like I need help. What's this problem? Like, I need help. I got into that. I got really into budgeting and financial independence, like, cause I didn't know nothing about that. So like when my marriage started, when it became apparent that that wasn't going to last, we just started working on ourselves, like to be better. Like we fucked up a lot being together. Like, can't we just be the best divorced couple? And like that's a great mentality that we've kept going into that. So we got really good at budgeting. I was like, Sarah, you're about to go. Like, I'm not gonna be worried about you. Like, I cannot live like that, being constantly. We're like, we need to get better at life, at adulting. And so she got serious about her career and we got serious about budgeting. Fortunately, I started June 22nd of last year, haven't used a credit card since. I paid off like $20,000 worth of debt. And so killing it at that, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Are you listening to Dave Ramsey?
He's a little bit of it. He's a little bit of it. I'm really into.
He's part. He helps us, but I also didn't follow that exactly. I find it a bit extreme in ways, but
only thing I have against Dave Ramsey is his 7th step. You know, his 7 steps to financial freedom. Yeah, or wealth. His 7th step is like live full and give freely, or some like bullshit cop out. And I'm like, really? Like, I've been doing that all 6 steps. Fuck that 7th step. But I think he did it just because 7's got like a biblical number. That's also big.
See that, yeah.
That's also a big turnoff whenever someone wants to throw a scripture in with their shit. Like nowadays, like, bro, you don't even know the Bible. Like, I read the Bible 11 times growing up in my household. Like, you don't know the Bible to be sharing scriptures, first of all. I take that shit way too seriously. I get really upset about it. But I got really into like just the FIRE community, financial independence, retirement early.
Yep.
Got really into that. Dave Ramsey. I'm a huge YNAB person. Oh, nice. Perfect.
I have it on my phone. We've used it for years.
Me too, dude. I found that so that was the first budget. So my wife moved out, right, when we separated. And it was the first time since I was a teenager that my bank account went negative. Like, and I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? And I was like, Sarah, I can't do this. Like, I got to figure something out. We had tried budgeting over our marriage. We had tried all these things, never could figure it out. I came across YNAB on Reddit and it just changed my life, man.
And for those who don't know what it is, it's you need a budget.
Yes,
And there's an app and there's a community and everything else.
And they're like, I like them because they're more into educating than they are their software. They're like,
Yep.
Get this down and then our software works. But you don't even need the software if you just follow like their education. But of course I support them, and I advocate for them all the time. I can't tell you how many presentations in business classes about them and stuff. So I got really into that. I'm really just trying to get out from under the thumb of everything they kept me, debt, consumer debt. I never knew about it. Just trying to establish a good adulthood. And like, I got really into photography. I'm starting up my own photography business. I'm really trying to become self-employed. So I'm trying to monetize some hobbies, and my photography is doing really well. I love it. Like, it's just something that I never realized how much of an importance expressing yourself artistically is. Like, I used to play guitar when I was in the organization, but all we played was Kingdom Melodies. And yeah, I was good at it, but like, fuck that. I don't want to play all that all the time. But photography is different, like when people comment on like on my Instagram or something, like or send me a DM, like, hey, thank you so much. Like, or this is crazy. Like, I really like this, makes me feel something like that. Blows my mind and is so gratifying. And oh yeah, like photography, man, is my jam right now. So like, I'm just trying to get, monetize stuff, get financially independent, getting into the stock market, because no one taught us that in school. Like, they don't even teach kids that go to school, don't even know that. Like, some of my friends that I'm making now, like one dude asked me, he's like, hey, what's a 401k? And I was like, you dude, what? Like, you're worldly and like you're supposed to know these things. Like, but it's kind of cool to have reminders that there's other people that are in similar situations, not as bad, but they're just humans trying to figure it out too. One of my friends asked me why I tag my photographs on Instagram with best life ever or JW. And I told him, I was like, because bro, like, they gotta know if someone, because I remember that's how I found you, man. I just searched JW in everything. Jehovah Witness, I searched shun in everything, and I came across your podcast. Side note, this JW life, your intro, when you're like, I always wish, every episode, despite how many times I hear it, I always wish you were like, and to any Jehovah's Witnesses listening, fuck you. But you never do. I always wish you did. But like, I tag my stuff that because I was looking for help. I was looking for support. I was looking for a post or something that validated me. And if someone comes across my pictures, they're not the best. I'm not the best photographer. I'm getting better though every day.
I like the one you took for your podcast episode.
Oh, sweet. Thank you, sir.
I like that a lot.
I tagged that and I told them, I was like, because they need to know they're not alone, man. We're not alone. I'm not in the best situation financially, but I'm getting it now. You know, I'm not the best mentally, but I'm working on it. I know how to do it now. And if I can convey that to another witness who is as afraid as I was or as I am still some days, that means enough to me. Like, if it's one post and they see, okay, this is an ex-witness and he's doing okay, doing something he likes, that's all that matters. That's good enough for me. Like, I'm happy with that.
Well, then you should be happy because you just told a great story that's probably going to help somebody out there who's listening. And that's the whole point, right?
Yeah, man.
For so long, we all felt alone, like we were the only person.
Mm-hmm.
We were the only person that felt like we did or saw what we saw. And then, you come out into this broader existence in the world, this broader life, and you start to see that there are all these other ex-Jehovah's Witnesses out there that saw the same things that we did, that had similar experiences, makes us feel less alone. You see that other people in the world have different, types of experiences as well that sometimes overlap with ours. And, it's by sharing this stuff that we all feel less alone. You probably felt less alone listening to some of the episodes of Shunned or listening to this JW Life. And, this is a way for you to help somebody else out there who's struggling to feel less alone. And, somebody might share some specific aspects of your story as well. And that's the beauty of sharing this stuff.
Yeah, man, I am so thankful that you have that platform and that you're taking full advantage of it. Coming across your podcast was a huge deal. Like I look forward to some, because I never got podcasts before I started listening to yours. Like people be like, you listen to podcasts? I'm like, what's a podcast? You know, like I've had my first email address when I was 17, so I don't listen to podcasts. So I was like, what the fuck's a podcast? And then so now I tell people, I'm like, yes, Shunned, my favorite. YNAB podcast, also top three, and like maybe like I don't know, some other mental health one or something that's good for me. But Shunned for sure, dude. Shout out to you, man. Top of the list all the time. I tell everyone about your podcast.
I appreciate that, man. Well, I think this is a good place to wrap it up. I do appreciate you being so open and honest about everything that happened. I love that you are reconnecting with your family. That's a beautiful thing, and you got a bright future ahead of you. You know, you're obviously, look, your parents couldn't be proud of you because you got your GED.
Mm-hmm.
But let the rest of us be proud of you, not just for the GED, but because you're going to college. You know, you didn't have much formal education at all because your parents kept you from it. And yet here you are, doing this thing and doing it on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And that's badass. So you should be proud of that. And it's that attitude that will take you far in life.
Curse God.